We're on, so I'll go ahead and get started. I welcome everyone to our college panel. We have a wonderful panel of college students, majoring in various fields such as computer science and aerospace, biomedical engineering, and electrical and computer engineering. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Give me a second. So we have 4 panelists today. We have Angeli from Northwestern University, Joshua from Georgia Institute of Technology, Varun from Georgia Institute of Technology, and Zheija from Carnegie Mellon University. So we'll get started with Angeli. Angeli is passionate about all things STEM. At Thomas Jefferson High School for Science and Technology, she was primarily involved in a web development, environmental science club, and Model United Nations. For 3 years, she competed nationally at the American Computer Science League finals. She has also competed at her school's hackathon, discovering an interest in VR and AR technologies while programming a simulation of the legislative process. This summer, she's had the opportunity to intern at Yext, working on QR fixes for clients such as Taco Bell, Godiva, and City Trends. Now a freshman at Northwestern University, she's majoring in integrated science and computer science on the pre-med track. She's planning to merge her interest in computer science into the medical field to ultimately provide revolutionary approaches to patient-centered care. So I'll hand it over to Angeli to talk a bit about her journey with STEM.
Thank you, Dia. My name is Angeli. So I guess at the start of my STEM journey. So I first got interested in STEM in middle school. I guess at the start of middle school, I started programming, web development in particular. I was actually doing some web development on Khan Academy. That's how I first got interested. And then from there, I took a computer science class at my middle school and got a little more interested there. And I knew I definitely wanted to go into STEM. I wasn't totally sure what STEM field, but at the moment it was computer science. And then after going to Thomas Jefferson High School, I got to take a lot of different classes that exposed me to different STEM fields. So, for example, our freshman year, we did an IVET project, which is basically integrating biology and English and technology. And we were studying lichen, which to me, I had no idea what lichen were when I first did the project, but from there I got to learn a lot about biology, and I never knew that I was interested in biology or any of that. So that was a really cool experience, and it really opened my mind. And then I got to take chemistry over the summer, which also kind of exposed me to different fields outside of computer science, which I wasn't totally aware of at the time. So believe it or not, I actually had I had no interest in any of this. And so when I first took a chemistry class, I wasn't sure what to expect, but keeping an open mind, I got to learn a lot of different things, and I actually really enjoyed taking labs, and taking labs was really interesting. So I pursued chemistry in my sophomore year. I took AP chemistry, and I really enjoyed that as well. And at the same time, I was also taking another computer science class, so I was still taking kind of required courses for my high school, but still got to explore some of my interests. And then it was really the summer after my sophomore year where I got an interest in medicine. So I started to volunteer at this hospital in Illinois, where I got to look at different departments. And one department that particularly got my interest was neurology. And the neurology department, I got to see someone perform an EMG, which, if you don't know, it's where they look at muscle signals. And so I thought that was one of the most fascinating things. So I looked more into that, and I hadn't taken biology, AP biology at the time, so I couldn't really look at that in high school. But it still opened my mind to neuroscience and neurology. So I continued looking at that, taking organic chemistry in junior year, and I took an AI class. my junior year as well. So it was still like having an interest in computer science, but also an interest in medicine. And at the time, I thought that I'd have to pick like one or the other. It's always been like you're a computer science person or you're like someone interested in biology or someone interested in chemistry. Like I didn't know there was like a thing of like being interested in multiple things. But I think it was like the summer. It was actually the summer after that, so like the summer between my junior and senior years, where um, well, I had gotten like CS experience the year before, so like actually back up, so like junior year, um, I participated in like a hackathon where it was like merging different interests. So I'm really interested in like foreign relations and things like that. So in like government and policy. And so we had for my hackathon project, we simulated the legislative process using VR technologies, which got my interest in VR and AR technologies, but it also showed me that you could really merge two different fields and make computer science applicable to other fields as well. So the summer after my junior year, I got to do research in oncology, and so that wasn't really computer science focused, but it really did like solidify an interest in like research and medicine. Um, so after that, I applied to some like medical programs, and I also applied to some computer science programs. And so the program I'm currently in, it's integrated science, where it's completely research based, but it integrates like it's like getting a minor in like chemistry and physics, biology, and math. So it's integrating all of that, and it's showing how interdisciplinary the STEM field is. So I can explore computer science interests and chemistry and physics, and then you can kind of see how everything is connected together, which I think is completely fascinating. And by being on the pre-med track, I can still take those classes and see if I'm still interested in the medical field. And we'll just see what happens after undergrad and how I can actually like integrate everything. But overall, I definitely want to integrate something with like neuroscience and like psychology into like computer science, and see where that goes. Cool. Thank you.
Sorry. Thank you, Angeli. That was very inspiring. I'm sure a lot of us have learned more and found now we can find ways to combine multiple fields that we're interested in. Oh, I'll go ahead and let Manya introduce Josh.
Yeah. So also present is Josh Boisvert, who is also a TJ alumnus, and he has major interest in rocketry and programming. He was a member of TJ Rocketry for his whole high school career, and was recently its vice president. He swam for TJ Swam and Dive, and participated in the TJ Symphonic Orchestra. Another activity he would love to pursue is comedy. Over the summer, he's been experimenting with building apps and remote control airplanes. And so now I'll just turn it over to Josh to talk about his STEM journey.
Okay. I don't really know when my STEM journey began. The first memory I have of STEM was in 5th grade when I learned that my middle school had a robotics team. That was the first time that I really saw the possibilities with technology and engineering and math. Not necessarily science, but that would come later. I didn't really find aerospace engineering until my 7th grade year. We were required to do career exploration, and I knew that I wanted to become an engineer, but I didn't know exactly what type of engineering I would like to do. So I looked it up online at like the Outlook for jobs and just found aerospace engineering. At first, it appealed to me because I was like, oh my goodness, 6-figure salary. Holy crap. That's what I want to do. But as I started reading more into it, I started realizing that I generally liked what AEs do throughout every day and over time. So I guess that's how I got my aerospace engineering start, and that kind of translated into the activities that I pursued in high school, but it didn't lead me to cut out anything in my life. I hadn't gotten to the point where it was going to be everything. It just was something that I was really passionate about. So I get into high school and I immediately apply for TJ Rocketry. And I initially didn't make the team because I was from Prince William County, so I wasn't from Fairfax County. I wouldn't say I wasn't as qualified. I would just say that um, I was just not known. And so I eventually got onto the team through persuasion of the vice president, president, and different people in the club, and they finally allowed me in. And I saw that as my opportunity to actually, do things and to learn. Because honestly, when you first enter an environment, you gotta learn before you can start doing or even teaching. And so I'd say that I just strove to take advice from the people around me, to work well with others around me as well, and to just absorb as much information as I can. I'm still learning about rocketry to this day. I mean, I'm only a college freshman now, so I guess there's still a lot more to do, but I feel like I've learned a lot, but I feel like there's a lot more that I need to learn. But so I did TJ rocketry throughout my 4 years, and I learned a lot of information about rocketry and about airplanes, about aerodynamics, about a bunch of different things that I would eventually have to use when I apply for a job or actually work somewhere. But I think that one of the key things that I learned while I was in high school was that I didn't have to limit myself really. High school, I guess, was a time of exploration. I think Anjali touched on this, that you could do a lot of different things in high school, and you don't really have to stick to one thing. And I like that. I like that about what she said. I was able to do clubs that I would have never thought that I would enjoy. I joined a disease club that talked about different diseases, and I found myself enjoying the club. Or I would join the physics team, and I would really like what they were teaching and what I was learning. It's just there were a lot of possibilities, and if you start limiting your opportunities when you're in high school, then there's no place to go but just continuously limiting more in college. If you don't expand your horizons while you're in high school, then you never have the chance to find fields that you really resonate with. That's what's kind of it kind of led into me getting into programming more as well. I took computer science my junior year rather than my freshman year, like everyone else did, and I was like, holy crap, I missed out on this for 2 years. And so I realized that I really loved computer science, and it's been really helpful. It's just an interesting thing that I strove to learn, and I think that that's another big thing that high schoolers, and I mean I'm still a high schooler basically, but that we should do is just try and learn as much as possible, because eventually information is going to become useful, whether it be how to program an app or how to, I don't know, build a rocket. I guess those are my two things. How to, grow cancer cells, or just different little skills that eventually become useful. And it's you're never gonna not need everything that you've learned. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I don't know. Now I'm an aerospace engineering major, and surprisingly, I've the rigorous course activity at TJ, and just learning in general, just outside of class, has really prepared me for what I'm doing right now. And it's not too difficult, well, at least so far. I've only been through like 3 weeks of it, but it's not too difficult, and it's surprisingly more interesting now that I actually understand what's going on. I'm taking classes that, of course, just relate to my major, so it's not really like I'm expanding my horizons there. I guess I'm not following my own advice, but I think high school is a really important time to really find yourself. College, somewhat, but high school is really you're living under your parents' roofs. You have, it's not like you have unlimited money to spend, but you just have the ability to not worry about like taxes and where you're living or how much money you're spending. Like you're kind of given free reign over what you choose to learn and what you choose to gain from those 4 years in your life. So with colleges, there's no magic formula. There's no specific set of requirements in order to get into an Ivy League school or into a school that you want to get into. It's just kind of finding what you want and pursuing that, and to not only pursue that one thing, to find many different things that you like, and to just kind of explore. I think that's it for me.
Thank you so much. That was really inspirational. I think everyone can take something away from what you just said. And I'll turn it over to Shreya to introduce Varun.
Varun is a third-year biomedical engineering undergraduate student at Georgia Tech. He's currently working on completing his degree at the end of his school year. He is an undergraduate researcher at Santangelo Lab at Georgia Tech, working on developing and optimizing mRNA-based vaccines and therapies to different diseases such as influenza. Varun has participated in many coding-based projects and has utilized various programming languages such as MATLAB, Python, and Java in order to solve complex, real-time problems for research purposes. Varun also enjoys teaching programming to younger children and works as a private tutor while not studying and conducting research.
All right, guys, I'm just going to do a quick mic check here. Can everyone hear me? All right, let's go and get started. So hi, I'm Varun. I'm a third-year biomedical engineering major at Georgia Tech. We've already gone over that. I'm also a TJ alum, TJ class of 2018. And I think another thing that's I didn't write on this intro is I'm also a pre-med student. I'm also doing medicine as well. I'm eventually looking to go into med school a couple years from now, and I'm probably leaning towards the internal medicine or infectious diseases areas. Pretty applicable in today's world. But so let's go ahead and talk about the STEM journey, right? So my STEM journey, I would say, started probably in 8th grade. So in my middle school, there was a very new chemistry competition that was just introduced, and I had not done much with chemistry up until that point, like just in the basics that you learn all the way up until like 6th or 7th grade. And so I, on a whim, just decided to go ahead and let's try out this competition. I know a couple of my friends that are doing it. It sounds like very fun. So I went ahead and tried it out and actually found that more than just studying for a competition or studying for like an exam or something, it was like the chemistry and the information that provided was actually like fairly interesting to me. And it was nice to see something different or refreshing from what I'm just seeing in the classroom. And so that's sort of where my STEM journey kind of began, or at least a STEM focus on, I guess, the sciences. And in addition to that, I did a couple of things with computer programming, nothing too like large, but a couple of things computer programming in like 8th grade on the side. And then my STEM journey really got kicked off in when I went to TJ. And so at TJ, or Thomas Jefferson, they have a lot of very important STEM courses that they take in your first year. A couple of those being like biology, you take a tech class, and I think someone spoke to this. We have they have that integrated with your English class as well. But specifically, just having those two classes there that very first year was really what sort of spurred my interest in biology for one, and then also the tech side of things. So learning that, hey, here's how the nervous system works, or here's how if you're looking at viruses or bacteria, or here's how cells replicate, right? So just learning that. Then also learning in tech, like, oh, hey, here's how a circuit works. Here's how you put one together. Here's how you can use this circuit, or maybe you can use this circuit with a microcontroller to build a robot, which is what we did. And then also just learning some more of the realities of life, as in, hey, you're gonna go, you get to high school here. Things are not always gonna be easy. Sometimes you're gonna take a test, and the class average is gonna be a 68. That's the way it works. Sometimes you're gonna hook something up to a circuit, and your LED is going to explode. That's how it works. Sometimes, so one of the big things that I found, specifically in the STEM field and throughout my STEM journey, and it started all in that first year of high school, was that failing is completely fine, or not succeeding is completely fine. It's what you take from that and what you gain from those experiences that is really just the more important part there. And so I found that I really enjoyed sort of, I guess I'd say, researching or testing stuff. I enjoyed actually getting hands-on experience and doing like work in the lab, or doing labs, actually working with the circuits or putting things together. That's actually what I enjoyed a lot more than just sitting and listening to lectures like we do in all our classes. Then we go through like sophomore year. Sophomore year is when I took my chemistry classes, and needless to say, I thoroughly enjoyed chemistry. The teachers and professors that I had didn't really matter. It was sort of, this is more of sophomore year was more for me a time of just searching for information, trying to get more information, trying to learn more about what I'm interested in. And I think that this is sort of piggybacking of what Josh said. It was more of a time of exploration for me, where I got to develop my interest and learn that I'm actually really interested in chemistry, and specifically biochem. and leaning towards that side. And so this is when I started thinking about, hey, maybe I want to go into the field of medicine or look at this. This is just sort of like, this is like the stuff that I'm interested in. And up until that point, in about like 10th grade, I had made one pretty big mistake. And that pretty big mistake was telling myself that, hey, I'm not good at computer science and that I actually hate this and it's going to be super boring. Well, I took computer science in the summer after 10th grade before 11th grade, and it turns out it was actually quite okay. It wasn't terrible. Actually, it was actually quite fun. I had a couple friends in that class, and we were all at the end of the class. They had us all come together and work on a project. And I found that really enjoyable because I mean, coding's fun and all, or coding's okay. The logic based part of it was really fun, like coding's a lot of logic puzzles. But I found that collaborating with people and working together, that was the more fun part of coding, where like it's really hard to write with one big program all as one person, but if you split it up and break it apart and then put it all together, that's sort of a better way to do it, and it's just a lot more fun that way. And so I started to enjoy that a little bit. I took APCS, or AP Computer Science, in 11th grade, along with a bunch of other courses. Was one of those being physics, where I found out I really didn't like physics. So 11th grade was also, so 11th grade, for those of us who are juniors here, who are listening as juniors and are worrying about college apps and whatnot, 11th grade traditionally is regarded as your toughest year, and the year where you have to start worrying about, oh, this is my college app stuff. I got to start laying these things out and padding my resume and whatnot. For me, I can't say I didn't focus on that stuff, but I also want to say that I was sort of focusing still on, hey, what do I actually still want to do with my life? Because still got 2 years left to decide, and college apps are maybe 1.5. College apps aren't due until like the end of first semester of senior year, so still got some time to decide here. And that's when I really started to solidify my interest. No, I didn't like physics. Computer science was starting to become a little more enjoyable for me. I knew that I really enjoyed biology. I took AP biology in 11th grade. We did some cool experiments there, but one of the biggest things I did in 11th grade was I took a class called DNA Science 1. And so in that class, we learned the very intricate details of how does DNA work? How does DNA made into RNA? And so the very, very, very intricate details of, hey, here's how the inside of a cell works, right? And that's sort of what got me started thinking about going into this, I call it bioengineering as opposed to biomedical engineering, the bioengineering side, where we're looking at internal medicine and infectious diseases and that kind of stuff, right? Where it's all a bunch of small things interacting with each other, and we're trying to figure out how are these small things doing. And so you get to look at things under a microscope, or you get to culture bacteria and whatnot. So that's what that class was all about. And I really, really, really enjoyed that class. Now, I didn't have the best grade in it, but I really, really, really enjoyed just learning the material. And honestly, for me, the grade was sort of like the side thing for me in that class. Some classes, I have to say, maybe I was focused on the grade too much, but for me, especially in that class, I like to think that I didn't make that mistake and actually focused on learning material. It was actually really enjoyable. So that was sort of my first exposure to what I'm doing right now. And I think that was one of the things that really got me thinking, hey, this is a route that I really enjoy doing and want to like pursue going forward. And so now we'll fast forward a little bit to, we'll fast forward to the end of junior year, where for those of us who are doing college apps, or for those of you guys who are doing college apps, this is when about the time I started visiting colleges and going to check out, hey, what do you guys have to offer for me? Do I think I want to come here? Do I want to apply here, right? And so I do recommend this, although it's a little bit harder now because most colleges are closed or online or whatnot. But I do recommend talking to people at different colleges and finding out what they offer, because oftentimes just going, at least for me, going to some of those colleges and seeing what's being done there was really helpful for me to say, hey, actually, this looks really cool to me. I might want to do this, right, going forward. And so a couple of labs that I got to go tour. I didn't get to tour any Georgia Tech, but I did go to UPitt, and I toured a couple labs there. And some of those labs, specifically the electronics ones and whatnot, were really fascinating to me. I wasn't particularly interested in electronics, but those are really fascinating to me, and it got me thinking, hey, I might want to incorporate whatever, like some of this stuff that I'm doing or that I'm seeing here into what I'm doing going forward, right? And so now we get to like senior year. It's like I'm applying for college, but I have pretty much set what I want to do. I know that I want to do biomedical engineering because that sort of combines what I like to do. Best combines that tech part where I like to put stuff together and get hands-on experience and stuff, along with this like bioengineering aspect and the biology aspect of that, like the very small part of that. So at the end of all this, I had joined this club called Bioengineering Projects for the Future. And this is, I don't know if this club still exists at TJ, but this is one of the clubs that, this is one of my favorite clubs that I joined at TJ. one of the few that joined at TJ. And what we did in that club was sort of develop ideas and for projects or things that we could build that would that are sort of like a fusion between technology and biology, right? So one of the things we were building was a low-cost PCR machine that operated based on just very simple principles, like, oh, hey, here's some kind of like hand crank rotor that you can rotate to, like centrifuge something or something like that, right? So just and maybe if we have like in order to heat things, we use some inexpensive parts to heat things and give it a very like inexpensive, safe covering. And so this was the idea here was to make this super low cost that we could give it to people who are in developing countries and sort of help further science and research and medicine in these different areas where it's not actually possible. So that was sort of our project my senior year. And this one was very fascinating to me because you got the tech portion of where you're building this machine, and you got to think about, hey, how do I put this machine together? How do I wire it up? How do I make it so that it's safe for someone to use? And you got the biology aspect. Hey, does this actually do a PCR, right? You got to heat for PCR. You got to heat your sample from maybe 95 to 50 to 70 degrees Celsius. So you got to say, hey, does it actually go from this temperature to this temperature to this temperature, right? So that's sort of some of the things that I enjoyed doing there. And then we get towards the end of senior year where I'm applying for college. And for those of you guys, I don't know if all you guys are TJ, but those of you guys who are in TJ, you guys know that TJ has research labs in the high school, and all TJ students get to go do a year of research there. And so I got to do a year of research in the biotechnology research lab. And particularly for me, since I mentioned this DNA science course was really fascinating to me, the biotech research sort of pushed it even further and said, hey, this is what I want to do going forward. And going into college, this is what I want to do. And so that is eventually what I ended up doing. I ended up getting accepted into Georgia Tech. And when I got here, or when I visited there, I knew that, hey, I'd seen all these people that were doing a lot of this research that I'm really interested in. I would like to get involved in this, so this is probably a good place for me. And so I ended up getting in there, and now I'm here. I'm in Georgia Tech. I'm working on my third year of my degree, and so that's been my STEM journey. I can discuss a little bit so right now as a researcher and specifically as a pre-med student, we were working. The lab that I'm in is working on developing vaccines or RNA-based vaccines to diseases. So basically, we can take this RNA and put it in the body, and it'll create a protein that'll sort of vaccinate you. That'll vaccinate you against the disease, or prevent you from getting this disease. So maybe it binds to it, so it'll sort of prevent the disease from actually coming and binding to your cells or going into your cells. This is a very new idea and a very recent idea, and so we're sort of working on pioneering this field. And also, it's a very applicable idea to COVID-19 now, which is what my lab is currently working on. So yeah, I've told this whole big spiel and this whole story from 8th grade to 12th grade, but I want to sort of touch on some of the more important points there. That one, high school is a time for exploration. As Josh said, it's a time to figure out what you actually want to do and what you like to do. So as I said, I took this one class and I really enjoyed it, right? And so I found out that, hey, I want to do this. I want to incorporate this into what I was doing. Similar to that for me, I actually took an AI course in senior year as well. I found out, hey, I actually really enjoyed this specific aspect of computer programming, the artificial intelligence stuff. So I think it has a lot of applications in medicine, and lo and behold, it does. So that's sort of another thing. It's like, okay, I know I want to do this, so let's go ahead and see, does my college have this, and try to do this. Second thing I want to go ahead and point out there is, don't close your doors too quickly. So I made that mistake in thinking that, hey, I really don't like CS. I really don't want to do CS or computer science. I really don't want to do coding at all. And that, for me, I feel like that was one of my biggest mistakes, because here I am now, and I do computer science, I do programming regularly, and it's just fine, and I'm enjoying it some of the time. Sometimes it gets a little frustrating, but that's everything. It's everything there. The third thing I want to touch on is, don't be afraid of failure. And I'm not saying necessarily that this means, hey, you should you want to try to fail all your classes and whatnot. But no, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm really trying to say here is, it's okay that sometimes things don't work out your way in a class. Maybe the grades don't go your way or whatnot. Maybe you're doing an experiment and the experiment doesn't go your way. Something breaks, something doesn't work. That's fine. What you really want to do from that is say, okay, why didn't it work? Why did it fail? Why did this thing go wrong? Why was this test hard for me? Right? Why? You just want to ask yourself, hey, why did this happen? And usually when you find that answer, it's like, oh, okay, now I can sort of fix this and sort of figure out, okay, let's try this next, right? We want to try to sort of figure this out. And so that's the next big thing I want to sort of touch on. It's like it's okay to fail, and specifically even more now that I've gone into college and sort of been through like a couple years of college, it's completely fine to fail. It's completely fine to have something go wrong. Now, you don't want to try to get into a habit of just mindlessly failing and not learning anything from it, but it's completely fine to fail as long as you're trying to learn from it and trying to keep growing and getting better and gaining more from that. In fact, it's actually helped me to not be perfect all the time, as I found out. The next thing, and then I guess the biggest thing I want to touch on is go and do what you really think interests you, right? I guess I'll sort of end with this. A lot of people that I saw were sort of, at least I don't know, maybe this is just my perception of my year of TJ, or a lot of people that I meet in college as well are sort of going after these things, and I see them, hey, like I like doing these things, and some of them just seem, I don't know, maybe they're just not as interested in it, or they're coming here and sort of bouncing around and whatnot and not really paying attention and whatnot. So what I really want to just hash out here and give you guys a message of is say, hey, high school is a time for you to figure out like what are you interested in, but then also when you do figure that out, or if you're interested in something, go ahead and do that. You don't need to worry about what other people are saying or what else is going on in the world and whatnot. Go ahead and do that thing. That's the thing that's gonna make you get better and actually make you learn more. Is gonna say, okay, I'm really interested in this. I want to do this right now, so I'm gonna do this right now. And that's what's gonna really help you just grow as a person and sort of I guess if we're talking about getting in college, getting the college that you want. That's really what I have to say here is just figure out what you want to do and then go ahead and do it. There's nothing stopping you from that.
Thank you, Varun. It was really insightful and inspiring. I think many of us connect to the part you were saying about failing and then keep trying and find a way to fix that. So thank you. So I'll go ahead and introduce Zheija. So Zheija likes learning Japanese, and she's planning on going to an exchange trip to Japan next year. She spins poi, draws, dances, and sings in her free time. She's also very much interested in quantum technology and AI and may get a PhD for that. So I'll hand it over to Zheija to talk a bit about her STEM journey.
Okay. Well, I got interested in STEM when I was like in elementary school. I watched like these Nova PBS videos, documentaries with like Brian Greene and all those people. And I got really interested in like quantum mechanics and also like AI back then as well. And I guess a good way to get interested in something is to watch a few videos on it, see if it's like, the videos will always portray something that is understandable to everyone. So you could get insight into something that's really complicated, explained really simply by watching videos about it. And then when I was in middle school, I watched a lot of World Science Festival videos where it was like debating the moral implications of AI and like explaining the double slit experiment and all that stuff. And then I also did coding on Khan Academy. It was a thing I did. And I also started doing math counts when I moved to Virginia in 8th grade. I've moved around a lot. Like when I moved to the US when I was 4 and to Boston, Massachusetts. And then I moved to Newton, another part of Massachusetts. And then I moved to Florida. And then I moved to another part of Florida. And then I moved to New Jersey. And then I moved to New York. And then I moved here. So yeah, I've moved a lot. And throughout all those moves, one of the things that's really hard to keep up with is like activities and stuff like that. And joining activities is definitely very important in fostering your interest or putting your time into something, because you're more likely to put time into something if you have friends there or you're doing things with people. Yeah. Before 8th grade, I was kind of scared of competition, so I kind of like avoided them. But I think that high school is the time to try everything. Everyone's already said this, but just go for it. And in the large scheme of things, you'll probably look back and laugh at yourself, even if it didn't go well. Yeah. And then when I went to TJ, I was in the same IBET as Angeli, the Lycan IBET with Larson, where unlike her, I guess, Larson is a very famous teacher at our school where like 90% of his people in his classes like just go to sleep or do something else in his class because his voice is very soothing. Yeah, but going through IBET, I guess, told me that I didn't really like biology. But okay. Okay. Anyways, that's kind of different from, I guess, other people's experiences. Okay. Also, after getting to high school, I ended up in a lot of clubs that I thought I wouldn't be in. Like, for example, I did poi and I did color guard. Two things that I didn't know. I didn't know what poi or color guard was before I entered TJ. So yeah, and both poi and color guard are kind of like, clubs are usually very niche, and especially if you don't know what the club name means, you might want to like check it out. Like, it'll make you unique, and it will give you like a small community of people that you can really connect to, especially in like online communities and Zoom and all the stuff like that. I've found that going to Zoom classes, you're really not going to talk to anyone other than in the public chat. So if you want to make friends or do something or get connected with people, you want to actively try to go to the clubs. Yes. Which brings me to another point, that one of the things that I regret from high school is that before I went into TJ, I literally knew nothing. I had no Facebook. I did not know anything about TJ, and I think that was one of that kind of set me back a couple of years, and I could have done this and I could have done that, but now I guess I can't because it's too late. So it's go to your school's website, look at all the emails they send you. Yes. And try to actively look through the list of clubs, list of organizations, and try to actively look for people, especially because it's really hard to actually talk with people nowadays in quarantine. Anyway, okay. Oh, and also picking clubs, you do want to pick a couple academic clubs, but you don't want to pick clubs just for the purpose of getting admitted into college. First of all, you guys, if you're juniors, you might have an idea of what kind of colleges you want to apply to. Maybe you're doing research, but if you're younger than that, you've probably only heard a few rumors of your aunts and aunties talking about how Harvard is the best school in the universe. You probably don't actually know which school you want to get into, and you can't really plan for that. And really, you want the college to suit you, not for you to change yourself to suit the college. So just explore, do what you want, and assuming that, so you probably have some academic interest, and even if you don't, just go to a couple that sound interesting, and maybe you'll find something. Okay. Oh, and also about the information thing, go to the internships fair at your high schools. The internships fairs, especially, you might think that you don't feel any need to go to them when you're like an underclassman or something like that. But there are internships that are limited to just 9th and 10th graders, and even if you don't end up wanting to go to any of them, it's worth it to check it out. in case you do. Yeah, so you don't regret it later. Okay. What else is there? Well, okay, another part of, at TJ, there's a big padding resumes for college admissions, stuff like that. And I've already, like, other people have already addressed that too. But also it's important to emphasize that the college admissions process is on some aspect random. Like, it's not exactly, like, your GPA has some weight to it, but it's really not everything. And with the amount of applicants they get, it's at least partially random. So you can't, even if you do have a college that you definitely want to go to, you can't exactly plan for the type of person that will get into the college. Precisely, yeah. So yeah. Well, you guys probably don't know what POI is, which I mentioned before, so I can introduce that. And if you guys have any questions, just, I guess, ask. I guess I didn't go over much of exactly how I got into STEM. It's literally mainly just watching YouTube videos. Okay, just watch YouTube videos. Yeah, if you don't know what POI is, there are these light up balls that you can spin and into pretty patterns and stuff like that. It's very interesting. It will definitely make you stand out because it's a very rare thing for people to do. It's a very niche thing. Yep. And I guess contextualize everything. College is not the end of your path. Your all and be all goal is not to get into college. And college is really just, how much difference can there really be in the college? Like, other than like the worst college and the absolute best college, like within the middle tier colleges, is there really a difference? Within the top tier colleges, is there really that much of a difference? College is like a platform to push you off to the rest of your life. Like, even if you go off of a lower platform, you can still get just as high, as long as you, I mean, have the potential. Like, and I think everyone basically has the potential. You just have to work towards whatever you're interested in, and I'm sure you'll be fine. Okay.
Thank you so much, Zheija. That was really informative and your advice was very helpful. So I have quite a bit of questions for all of you. So I will go ahead and get started, and I'll just kind of go in the same order that we went for talking. Okay, so I'll start with Anjali. So our first question for you was, what main courses would you recommend a student to take to pursue interests in bridging the fields between computer science and biology?
Oh, that's a pretty good question. So this is in high school? Like courses in high school?
Both in high school.
Okay. Okay, so in my experience, definitely take a computer science class. An intro to computer science class is completely okay. I think it's been mentioned many times. It doesn't matter like what level you are, what skill level you are, as long as you have an interest, definitely pursue it. So a computer science class for sure. And in terms of like medicine, I guess you can't really take like medically related classes in high school, but I guess finding like maybe like a field that might be interest to you. So like biology or chemistry, honestly, just taking any STEM class that interests you, I feel like would suffice. Like, you don't have to have a huge interest in biology in order to be a doctor. Like, maybe you might be interested in biology, but chemistry is really your forte, then take chemistry. Or maybe you're unsure, then I would definitely take intro classes to biology and chemistry and even physics. In college, I think definitely taking more like computer science classes. I guess I'm also a freshman, so I'm not totally sure, but I definitely think like the whole integrated approach that my school is like offering is a really cool start into like trying to find the bridge between computer science and medicine.
That's awesome. Really great advice for everyone trying to bridge their interests in STEM fields. And also, while you were talking, you mentioned how you were interested in almost like a lot of the classes that you took. How were you able to find a major that combined all of that?
Honestly, it's just looking for opportunities. So, I guess like when you're looking for colleges and like programs that you're interested in, just like I guess make a list of all the colleges you're interested in, or maybe even a separate list of all the programs that you're really interested in, or all the like subjects that you're interested in. Look into like research into those colleges. Like I had no idea that Northwestern offered an integrated science major. I was actually looking into like BSMD programs instead, but then I came across this and I was like, hey, I'll just apply it and see what happens. And I managed to get in. And when I looked more into it, I was like, wow, this is actually a very cool program that I didn't put much thought into before. So I definitely wish I like looked into that for other colleges as well. So definitely look into things that look into like programs and things that like interest you.
Yep. Do you have any recommendations for people looking for an internship? How can they find one? How do they know it's the right one, and how do they like sustain it?
Okay, something that I really wait, am I supposed to answer this question? I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll answer this. Okay. So, some really good advice I heard about internships was no internship is a bad internship. You always learn something from every opportunity that you get. So even if at the end you realize, hey, this is not for me, at least you found out, right? And you still learn skills like hard skills and soft skills. Like you might learn to ask questions without being afraid to do that, or you might learn, hey, programming is kind of cool, and programming is completely applicable to any field that you do. Like it might not just be like writing code, but maybe like the theory behind like algorithms or the code that you're writing. You learn about new problem solving skills that are applicable to anything. So for finding internships, I would say just like make that list of like something that's interesting to you, and then just like cold email like everyone, like maybe like not everyone, but like people, like companies that you're interested in, or if you're interested in research, like email them, like professors or teachers, and see if they're willing to like give you experience. A lot of the time they don't expect you to know things coming into the lab or coming into an internship, and they teach you things on the spot, which I think is a very cool experience to have.
Thank you. Before I ask my question, the last question for Anjali, this college panel might run over a bit over 8. Would that be okay with everyone, or we can shorten questions a bit and just email the rest to you? Would it be okay going over 8 with?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna continue then. So Anjali, in high school, you mentioned there were multiple courses you were interested in, right? So this ties back to the first question about how did you balance all of your interests in those fields?
Okay, to be honest, I still don't. I really have like a tendency to like be interested in so many different things, and so there's like advice where it's like trying to narrow things, and it's just not my thing, and so it's totally manageable to like balance all of it. You just have to be a little better at time management, which I definitely learned throughout high school. Like if you're interested in a lot of things, you can totally do it. You just have to make sure, hey, I will do this at this time, or maybe like I guess like making a 4-year plan if you're going into high school, it definitely helped me to just make plans, to make to-do lists, like, hey, I'll explore these interests at this time, or even like not just in classes, but you can do things outside of classes. So like I also had an interest in environmental science, which I still do, but I was active in our environmental science club, which wasn't technically like a part of like the classes I was taking, but I still got to nurture that interest by being a part of a community that also had similar interests. So yeah, definitely like time management and learning how to like schedule things so you can still do everything. And sometimes you won't be able to, and that's okay, because opportunities still present themselves even when you might not take one or two.
Thank you, Anjali. So I will move on. So next is Josh. So I'll let Manya take over for that.
Yeah, so Josh, you mentioned before that you were having some trouble trying to get into the TJ Rocketry Club. So what advice do you have for others struggling to land a position or getting involved in a field of their interest?
Ooh, man. I would I would say either, I guess, talk to other people that are already that are already at where you want to be, to figure out how they got there, or to maybe persuade them to get there. And if you can't get to where you want to be, find an alternative. I mean, if I didn't make it into TJ Rocketry, I would have just focused more on TJ the physics team rather than the rocketry. It's not that I had a plan for exactly what I wanted to do. It was just kind of like I knew what I wanted to, where I wanted to go, and I also knew my backup plan in case it didn't work out.
Okay. And then you also said before that you were interested in multiple fields. So how did you come to the decision to pick aerospace engineering as your major?
One thing that I have found, I guess, over the years, is just that college is not necessarily where you're going to learn how to be an expert in a particular field. It's kind of just a place where you learn how to learn. It's like where you develop your study skills. It's where you develop your teamwork. You can learn that stuff in high school. It's just college gives you a different environment, giving you more freedom and giving you higher expectations for working with others and to further your ability to study. So I guess right now I chose aerospace engineering partly because I really liked what the field offered to me. I mean, I have seen computer science as kind of like more like a hobby rather than a full-fledged career. So I guess that's partly why I chose aerospace engineering over computer science. But I also think that even if I do get out of college and I find that I don't really like aerospace engineering, I can still kind of just translate the skills that I would learn in college or even in high school over to another field. And the basic building blocks are still the same. I mean, I'm still gonna have to learn stuff when I get to a new job. I'm still going to have to, I guess, prove my worth. So it's not necessarily I'm going to college to learn exactly how to become an aerospace engineer. I'm kind of going to college just to learn how to learn almost.
And then you also mentioned that you were interested in comedy. So do you think hobbies that aren't really related to STEM have an impact on your STEM skills and vice versa?
Oh yes, I do think they do. I I'm actually reading a book right now. It's called The Power of Habit. It's kind of famous, or not famous. It's kind of well known. And in the book, they talked about the habits that you learn with activities that aren't school related or academic related. So maybe not comedy really, but playing an instrument or practicing for a sport. Um, Having to repeatedly practice for something and to dedicate time and dedicate energy to something builds a sense of self confidence, and it also helps you to maintain schedule and to manage your time better. So these extra activities outside of academics can really, really boost your ability to make the most of the time that you do have for academics.
Yeah, I think I agree with that too. And then coincidentally, we had a guest speaker yesterday who is also an aerospace and a professor who talked about UAVs. So what is your area of interest that you would like to focus on?
Right now, I'm more leaning towards space, so I guess UAVs aren't my sweet spot. Although they're kind of cool. I mean, not kind of. They're really cool. But I mean, I'm more focused on rocketry and kind of just the spatial element of aerospace engineering. I mean, there are two main fields in AE, so I guess I'm choosing the space one, and that's has more to do with things that happen outside of the Earth, I guess.
Thank you so much, Josh. I'm going to turn it over to Shreya to ask her questions to Varun.
All right.
You mentioned that you went out on a whim to try out the chemistry competition. Do you think impulse and just following through plays like a role in how you ended up in your STEM field?
Yeah, for sure. I think half the time, if I didn't do some of these things that I did do, I just wouldn't have got here the same way. I wouldn't have got to the same point that I am here right now. So obviously, like in a chemistry competition, going out and saying, "Hey, why not just give us a try?" Like, right? I got nothing to lose there, so why not just give us a try and see how it works? And it turns out it was pretty fun. A couple other things I did mention throughout my story that I did end up we did end up doing. So one of those things was we did in sophomore year we did a competition. It was not a super well known competition. We just did it was a competition that was more of got us thinking along the lines of, hey, if we made something in order to like solve a problem, what would be the process to first develop that, test it out, and then also like market that, right? So it was more of the whole process, kind of getting you thinking about the whole process, and that was a really cool experience. And honestly, it was not a very well-known project, and we wouldn't have found out about that, or we wouldn't have known about that unless we like jumped into it head first and tried it out. So that was another cool experience. And then one of the bigger things that really like sort of shaped my journey, at least in high school, not specifically in STEM, was one of the things I tried very early on in high school was marching band and drumline and playing percussion like as part of this big group. And since I've already been doing a lot of percussion and learning a lot of music outside of school and on my own, so now I'm trying to put it together as part of a big group. And so it was a really interesting and new experience for me. It was a difficult experience, but at the end of it, at the end of all 4 years of doing this throughout high school, I think I definitely learned a lot more there, and it definitely shaped how I journeyed through like my STEM journey and whatnot, like a lot more than like some of the other decisions that I made that were like planned and carefully coordinated. So a lot of times, like things that you just like, hey, this looks interesting, this looks cool to me. I really might want to do this, or I don't know what's going to be, but I got nothing to lose by trying this, right? A lot of those decisions are the ones that are going to be like, they're going to make you think, hey, actually, this is really cool. I want to do this, or maybe I want to continue this. This is something I can. It's fun as a pastime or a hobby or whatnot, right? So I do. I mean, the question I think was, do these impulse kind of decisions make a big impact on like how you get into STEM and how you do in STEM and how you progress? Yes, they do, but they're also just great opportunities to find out what you like, even if it's not STEM.
When do you think is a good time to start deciding what path you want to follow?
Ah, yes. This is a question that I have been asked way too many times. And so my answer to this is always going to be there's no right or wrong time to decide what path you want to follow, right? It sounds so super cliche, but let me get into it here. So I decided what path I wanted to follow in ninth grade, and now looking back on that, I would have if I was able to take myself right now and go back and tell my ninth grade self, hey, you should do this, right? I would say, hey, don't close yourself off because there's some doors here that you haven't opened yet that maybe you want to open, right? So I didn't do CS until very late, and I was convinced that CS is boring, I'm gonna hate it, right? Turns out it's actually quite fun, and like maybe I would have chosen differently. Maybe I would have chosen something more like, oh, let's do more CS related, more programming related, biomedical with the pre-med track, maybe, right? Maybe I've chosen something different if I knew that earlier on, but now I'm in bioengineering, which I really do enjoy. It's just knowing things sometimes might make you make a different decision, and so I have no idea how it would have played out if I didn't close myself off there, right? So I had it decided from a very early age. I know that my sister, who was also currently a high schooler in TJ, she took her time to decide, and now she thinks she's really enjoying computer science and wants to go down after. She's a senior this year, so she took her time to decide, and now she found something that she really likes and really wants to do. So like from my point of view, at least like seeing this and looking at like other people, like some of my friends have told me their stories of how they got into what they want to do. I don't see there's not particularly one specific right time to decide, right? There's a lot of different factors that should influence your decision. It should be what you like. You should go ahead and look at these colleges. I think Angeli also touched on this, but I'll go ahead and touch on it again. You should go and look at the colleges that you maybe are interested in by if you visited them or you know about them, and look at what they have to offer. Maybe you find something and say, hey, this is a really good thing that they have to offer that I haven't done before, but it's super fascinating to me, right? Or you find something and say, hey, I've done this before, and it's still and it's really fascinating to me, and this is what they have to offer. So then you might end up saying, hey, I really want to go into this program, and that ends up being your track. Otherwise, I mean, there are other things that you want to think about is, can I do I like? Can I actually do this for a long while? Is this something I like, and can I actually spend my time? Do I want to spend my time doing this? There's certain things sometimes you like to do these things, but you don't want to spend like hours upon hours upon hours doing them. So you want to make sure that, hey, this is something I can actually do. So it's turning into more of a, how do you figure this out? But as far as, is there a right time to decide, hey, I really want to do this, or hey, I'm going to do this, I'm going to start applying this way? Not really. And I know that a lot. So the one more thing, as after going through college and going through a couple of years and hearing other people, other alums from my class and whatnot, and about their experiences in college, a lot of colleges do offer you the opportunity to change out of what you're doing into something different, all the way up until usually the end of first year, end of second year. And so this still gives you more time to figure out, hey, I went to college to try and do this, but now I got to college and I found something else that's super fascinating. I wanted this more. Usually, you can change, and most colleges usually allow you to do that. I know that for a fact that Georgia Tech allows you to change. There's no restrictions or anything to change. Just you say, hey, I want to change my major in my first year. You can go ahead and do that without any problem. The second year, there's a couple of restrictions and whatnot, but first year, there are no restrictions. You can go ahead and switch majors whenever you want, as many times as you want to. So it's really a time, like that's really like time where you could like explore interests and whatnot. And so in order to sum up the answer to that question, there isn't really a specific time I would recommend. You say, hey, I want to do this. Just keep in mind and keep thinking about when you do something and say, oh, hey, I like this, I like this. Keep in mind those 3 points. One, do you really, really, really like it? Or do you really like it? Or are you tricking yourself into thinking, hey, maybe I like this because people are saying this or whatnot, right? 2, go ahead. Is this offered elsewhere? Do I see this something that I can go into a college and do, or do I see this something I can pursue later on? And 3, make sure you actually want to spend time doing this, right? So it's just the 3 things that I would keep in mind when you're deciding. Other than that, I say there's no right or wrong time to decide.
You are finishing a 4-year degree in 3 years. What sort of courses did you take that helped accelerate?
Okay. So, I mean, I took a few APs. I took I want to say 10 or 11 APs in high school. Just very basic ones: AP Computer Science. I took calculus. I took biology, chemistry, all the very standard APs. I didn't take physics. Took literature, AP Government, AP US History. Just the sort of standard APs that you might take in a high school, where they're just sort of history, math, English, science, right? Just the basic ones, and that's sort of what got me covered. But I think the real thing is especially in TJ and whatnot, where I did after you take your APs, did a bunch of like specialty courses or like specific specialization courses, I'd say, where they're very in-depth, detailed. Like the courses cover in-depth and detailed about one specific topic. So, for example, multivariable calculus, right? It's an extension of calculus, and it covers specifically working with local variables and all these different concepts. Or maybe you cover, you do like an extra course in organic chemistry, where organic chemistry covers, hey, here's how to read HNMR or whatnot, right? These are all skills that you will learn eventually in college. Maybe you do a course in, I don't know, artificial intelligence, right? That's something that's not necessarily considered an AP course, but you take it, it's just like a specialization course where you learn something very specific. So what ended up happening to me is I got to Georgia Tech and they transferred over a certain amount of AP credits the way they wanted to do. And then I said, hey, I have to take these classes still, but I've already taken these equivalents in high school. So I basically said, hey, am I able to test out of these or take a test and get out of these courses? Because I already feel that I'm fairly confident in this material, and I really don't want to have to sit through another course that might prevent me from taking another course that I really want to take later on, right? So that's why I said, hey, I can do this, right? So then they said, yeah. Usually they say yes. Most colleges will say yes. Maybe you take a final for one of the courses that's being offered currently, and based on how that final goes, yeah, well, here you go. You got your exam for this course. But yeah, so that's what happened for me, and I was able to get out of a couple different courses. I got out of multivariable calculus, and I got out of a general chemistry course that way. And so that was sort of one of the bigger things that influenced me getting done a little quicker. And then another important thing that you want to remember, that this is when I was mentioning APs, this is one of the things that I didn't mention, is language. When you take an AP language, that speaks very highly, and that is a very high impact AP, right? Because most all colleges will require you to do some kind of a humanities credit, or they're called humanities and like social sciences or whatnot. But it basically they're saying, hey, we want you to learn some kind of other language because in today's world, it's a global community. Everyone speaks a lot of different languages, and knowing another language is just always good. So having that AP language does count for a lot when you're going into college. That's just, hey, I've taken this language for multiple years. I'm very proficient in it because the AP exams are ones that ensure, hey, I can actually speak this in a conversational manner, right? So this says, hey, I'm very proficient. I can hold a conversation with someone in this language, which is important when people are looking at what skills you have, not just for college, but for job as well. It's saying, hey, you can hold a conversation with someone in this language. Okay, well, maybe we have clients that are working in this language. This might be a good way to connect with them, right? And so that's just an AP language is a very good thing to have, and that's one of the big reasons that I think I'm probably going to be able to complete this in 3 years because of the fact that this AP language counted for so much of what the colleges want you to take in terms of humanities. They're like, okay, so you've taken this, we know you're proficient in this, we'll give you these credits for you, right? And then the last thing I'll say is I did one semester of college where I took 21 credits. It's not advisable. Generally in college, just so that since you guys are all, I think most people are high school here, generally in college, you can take anyone from 0 to 21 credits in a semester. Credits are basically, each class is usually 3 to 4 credits. Generally, most people take 5 classes or 6 classes. That's roughly somewhere from 14 to 18 credits. That's generally what people take. I took a 21 credit semester, which is 7 classes, so that ended up helping me complete things a little bit quicker. And so there is sort of like if you're looking to do accelerated, which is not necessarily the need for everyone. Some people want to take a few more years to further their interest in something, right? But if you're looking for that, that's sort of like the formula that I use to get that done.
Do you have any advice for students to find a path where they can integrate their like passions in?
So when you say, do you have any advice for students to integrate their passion in STEM? Do you mean like integrate multiple fields, or what are you specifically saying here?
Like integrate their like the projects they've done and what they've studied in.
Okay. Yeah. So as far as finding paths for what you like, the projects you've done, right? So I guess I'll speak a little bit from my experience first, and then give you sort of a general guide there. So in my experience, I know that the projects that I did, I think I touched on these a little bit. We did one where we were sort of developing a device it's sort of like a device that's going to help people. It was actually related to seizures and like tracking data for seizures, and that was like a competition where we developed the device, modeled a very basic prototype, did a couple tests, and then sort of discussed how are we going to build this and how are we going to put it in the market, right? And then I also talked about the project where we were building a low-cost PCR machine. And so these are sort of a couple different projects that are all in the same field. And maybe you have projects that are in the same field, or they're not in the same field. Like maybe you've done a coding project where, I don't know, you've done some kind of artificial intelligence thing, or maybe you've done some front end or web development, right? And then you have some other project which is like, oh, I've done research in this bio lab, right? How do you combine those two is probably what you're more looking for. How do you combine these things? And this is sort of me speaking from more of a college point of view than a high school point of view now. But if you're looking for that track or finding out the track that you used to, that's saying, hey, I want to combine my experiences in these projects, but they're kind of different, and I don't know how I can actually relate them. You want to think about the way I would think about it is saying, yeah, you should look for programs that allow you to do both, but at the end of the day, sometimes you may not find something like that, right? It's about seeing what colleges offer, and sometimes you may do a bunch of looking, you may not find something. The next thing you can do is when you're looking at college, especially when you're in high school, you're looking at college, you're looking at what track you want to go down, and say, okay, I know that a couple of my projects, I don't know how many projects you might have, but I know that a couple of my projects are in this field, and I have just this one that I really enjoy that's also in a different field. You can say, okay, I know that my expertise and whatnot is in this field. I like doing this field. So I'll pick a college that has a program in this field that's pretty good or that interests me, but also has a program in this other field that I'm interested in, right? So Georgia Tech was sort of that like middle ground for me, where I said, hey, it's got a really good BME program with really good research and whatnot for just BME in general. But Georgia Tech's also got a fairly good CS background, CS base, And so while I was enjoying CS in high school, doing this artificial intelligence stuff, and I knew I wanted to incorporate that into my BME stuff. Going to Georgia Tech was sort of like a blessing in disguise for me there, and sort of a good thing there, because I'm able to interact with all these people who are really good at computer science, and specifically in Georgia Tech, I'm in a robotics club, medical robotics club, so we're working on like prosthetic arms and whatnot, and I get to meet with these people who are electrical, and then they're also doing some computer science, and just talk with them and say, hey, I'm interested in these things. I'm not the most experienced in them, and this is sort of something I do on the side. It's just one of my side interests. But I'd love to learn more about this, and then they'd be able to say, hey, yeah, that's cool. Here's what you want to know, right? And that's just sort of a good way to connect there. And so my advice there is, obviously, if you can, so go ahead and look through the different colleges' programs to see, hey, does this college have what I want to do? Does this college have what I want to do? And then additionally figure out what you specifically want to do. So again, going back to how to pick your track, consider those three things and figure out what you want to do. And if you have another interest on the side you really want to keep up as well, when you're looking through those college programs and seeing which programs are a good fit for you, think about, hey, if I go to this college, is there also going to be an opportunity to do this available for me? And so that's sort of my 2 cents there. It's not necessarily always about finding the correct program or the program that integrates everything. It's about saying, hey, I really want to do this, but I have this side interest. If I go here and do this program, do they offer something else where I can pursue this other interest as well? And maybe if you find that later on that other interest, once you want to make that your own track, yeah, then you can just go ahead and do that usually. So I hope that answers your question. If I didn't, I'm sorry. It's a bit of a tricky question for me since I didn't really have that experience, but I think that it's a good question. I think that's sort of my 2 cents there on how to go about that.
Thank you, Varun. Many of us were able to learn a lot from your answers, and it was inspiring for us to find a path that we're truly passionate about, and it's never too late to learn. I'll hand it over to Manya to ask questions about Zheija.
Yeah, so Zheija, you mentioned before that you're interested in Japanese. So were there any skills that you picked up when learning another language that you found useful when working on STEM projects, and vice versa?
Necessarily just learning another language, but also participating in the Japanese program, like doing things like calligraphy performances, as well as hosting an exchange student. I feel like learning another language is a big leap in your presentation and communication skills. Like, if you can present your project in Japanese, you can probably present it in English perfectly fine. And also, other things that you can learn with language. Yes. Japan has a lot of like every country has its own research, right? So you can, when your school probably has, or if your school doesn't have an exchange program, when you go on exchange programs, you can communicate with what research is being done in other countries and probably bring in different perspectives. Like every year at TJ, Japanese exchange students come over and present their research projects, and knowing Japanese makes it much easier to communicate with them. Yeah, also learning a language can also help you with learning how to learn something, or especially how to learn something with a lot of memorization, I guess. Because learning Japanese, like learning like words and like kanji on its own and like root memorizing them is really difficult, and also really boring. A lot of Asian children rebel at the sight of kanji and needing to memorize them. But learning Japanese through things like reading stories and singing Japanese songs was a big help to me. So really learning what you want to learn through something interesting is a very big help in your progress. Yeah, and learning a language can help you find ways to do that.
For people facing similar difficulties in moving around or having to give up on certain courses and activities, what advice do you have for following their passions?
Moving around is really hard. What I did was, first of all, I did things that wasn't tied to a location. Like, you can participate in online communities, you can read books and do things that don't require other people, but also you can moving isn't just moving and trying to participate in things around the community is going to be hard, but that doesn't mean you can't pursue your interests, because first of all, your interests don't have to be around the community. You can participate in if you want to participate in clubs or competitions, you can participate in national clubs or competitions that you will likely have if you move to another school. Or you can, or I already mentioned you can do things that don't require other people, but also moving around isn't just an obstacle that you have to get around. Moving around is also an opportunity, because every place that you move, you have a fresh start. You can do whatever in the world that your heart desires. And with every opportunity I got that I moved, I experimented with a lot of different things. Like there was at some point when I was on the swim team, there was at some point where in elementary school I did ballet and gymnastics. There was at some point where I did ice skating. There was at some point where I did math counts, clearly. There was at some point where I did other things, yeah, that I don't remember. I did a lot of things. So moving around can allow you to experiment with a lot more things and change around and experiment with a lot more things than if you had to stay in one place and stay in one club and commit because everybody else expects you to keep doing something.
Thank you. I think that really helps some people. So for you, what was the turning point to decide to pursue electrical and computer engineering? And how did you get interested in quantum mechanics?
Actually, these two kind of like, I was interested in quantum mechanics because I already mentioned the PBS videos, but when I was like in elementary school, like late elementary school, I watched Brian Greene's series on the universe, and there was the one episode about quantum mechanics where, whoa, there can be multiple timelines and like particles being in different places at the same time. Wow. And like multiverse and all that stuff and stuff like that. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And then in middle school, I already mentioned this, but I watched a lot of professors debate, and physicists debate about quantum mechanics and explain quantum mechanics simply. So I think first that was also a big help when I was actually taking quantum mechanics at TJ. Having the background knowledge to contextualize all the equations and everything that you're learning can be very useful. So even if you think that it's just for the public and it's not going to go deep, it's still useful in checking out videos on subjects. Yeah, I honestly, I just thought quantum mechanics was super cool. And then I took quantum mechanics. And then I was like, wait, you can't measure in quantum mechanics in college. So I was like, wait, so what do I need to measure in? So I majored in ECE because that's basically, like, quantum mechanics is basically like a branch of ECE. Yeah, you can only study quantum mechanics as a PhD. So, yeah.
Thank you so much, Zheija, for answering the questions. I'm pretty sure everyone got something from what you said. I'm going to turn it over to Thea to ask a few more general questions.
Yeah, so these are just for the entire panel in general. So how important is research and internship towards college? How did you get your internships? And with school switching over to online, do you have any advice for students who want to build a good impression and relationship with their teachers for recommendations? We can go in order.
Loaded question.
Sorry?
I'm just saying that's a loaded question. It's got a lot of different parts. I'll answer on the online portion because I don't have much experience with internships and that. I guess with online, you got to reach out to your teacher if you want to be noticed. Right now in college, teachers will be teaching hundreds of kids, and and sometimes, like, most of my classes aren't even synchronous, so I won't even get the chance to, I guess, show my face to them, and they will not notice me unless I actually reach out to them. So that's the only way you'll actually form a relationship with your teacher.
I can answer the question about like internships and research. Right now, it might seem like things aren't feasible, but you'd be surprised by how many things are like transitioning to like a virtual environment. Like currently, I'm kind of doing research at Stanford in like cardiology, and it's a lot of like programming based research, but it's still like I'm still learning a lot about medicine just through like doing computer science through that. So I guess you could just like I said before, like email professors. They'd still be happy to take high school students who show that they're passionate about the research they're interested in. Like definitely mention like why their research connects with your interests, and then maybe talk a little bit about like your background and what you hope to do in the future. And I think a lot of people are willing to help students, especially when it gives them an opportunity to share what they're passionate about.
So this has been a really interesting and inspiring panel discussion. We heard from a group of folks who are aiming to space, playing with electricity, and people who are specializing in multiple science and technology fields all in one. So your experiences, journeys, and advices were very helpful, and we all learned a lot from this session. We appreciate all of you taking time out of this long weekend and spending it with us and giving us so much helpful advice. So thank you all again for coming to speak at Hack2connect 2.0.